Hello, so I was working on a video about Alistair MacLean's Ice Station Zero when a lot of people that I used to work with, we were discussing a new TV show. It's called G-WED, G-WED, I don't know what that means. It might be a Liverpudlian thing because the show is set in Liverpool. It's a new comedy series from ITV in the UK and it's based in a secondary school. And as some of you may or may not know, I used to be an English teacher at that level. So I sat down to watch it and this was my reaction. You're a brave boy if you take a girl's phone out of their hands without their permission. All that would end badly. I think for a lot of people, I definitely don't recommend doing that. Crikey, confiscating one in a classroom's tough enough. I don't know what this poses, but yes, this is the sort of thing you see a lot with young boys. Like they have this sort of, even a clique of about 4 or 5 kids will have their own sort of in-jokes and culture almost that is completely impenetrable to an old fart like me. I kind of just go, that sounds like a young person thing, and just leave them to it. Yeah, I've seen that sneer on a few teenage faces. Yeah, that's bringing back some PTSD. What these girls are doing is they have solicited, so they've asked for dick pics, and I assume that this is purely from their peers, and I really hope not from teachers or anything like that. And what she's saying now is that she also is using that to blackmail her classmates. So she's like, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to release this picture. This is a major safeguarding issue. There would be a lot of what's what I'm looking for? I almost said interest, but that would be the wrong word. This would be like a massive scandal. I never, in 4 years, I did jump around a few schools and never heard of anyone doing this or saw anything like this, but I don't doubt that it went on. There was always in our training, sort of when you change a school, you have to do the same training every time. So I did it at least half a dozen times. And they always say, don't think it couldn't happen here because it's probably happening here. We just don't know about it. So I taught secondary school. This is set in a secondary school. So if you're American and you're unsure, these girls, I think they said they're year 11. So they would be 15 or 16. Don't know what has occurred between those two, but the interaction of the two boys at the front here, I've seen that. Yeah, you get this sort of teenage boys having a very weird bromance from time to time, sort of staring across the classroom for no reason through like pretty much the whole hour at each other because they're not allowed to sit together because they can't behave, so they sit at opposite ends and they just stare at each other. I've seen that a few times. It's very weird. Okay, so whatever the Chinese girl was angry about, this guy's done something to her, and the teacher has said, oh, was this a racially motivated thing? And he's like, oh, you're racially motivated. And you definitely see that. The sort of parroting back of left-wing buzzwords, and schools are extremely left-wing environments. So the buzzwords are everywhere and the kids know them and they know how to use them. So when he says you're racially motivated, even a kid that's quite stupid, sorry for the use of that word, would know how to use those words and would use them perhaps deliberately wrongly in a way to just like be annoying and wind people up, but knowing full well that by using the right words, they basically can insulate themselves from quite a lot of comeback. The parroting of the buzzwords is really tiresome as a teacher, really tiresome, and more so because you have, as I said earlier, you have the training, then you disseminate that training to the kids about you mustn't send unsolicited pictures. That's going to get on the internet. Everybody's going to see it. Just don't do it. So they'll end up doing it, and then you go. You'll have the training. It's like, we're going to clamp down on homophobic bullying. So you have like a video that you have to show your class and tell all the kids you must not use these slurs. They are terrible words. And literally as they're walking out the door, they'll be using them against each other, because the more you say don't do something, the more a child is going to do it. They're trying to play him off as like the cheeky chappy, but either they've never dealt with a cheeky chappy sort of kid, or they've had to sort of contrive it to make something of the story, but this kid's not. He's not the cheeky chappy. He's a dumbass. And the teachers and other sort of higher ups, like head of year, head of school, they're not going to listen to this sort of nonsense. The other thing is you might find this, when he says sit down, is that the kid's just going to go, oh, fuck off, and storm out. That happens quite a lot, and then you have to on the phone. I've had a kid walk out. Can you send somebody to go and find where they are? Because you can't just have them wandering off into out of the school or anything like that. So it's quite a serious issue for a teacher when they walk out, but it's not uncommon, and it's usually hot on the heels of them telling you to fuck off. Yeah, his mum's absolutely vile, and I really hate her as a character. I could stand to see a lot less of her in this. Yeah, this is a product of probably watching too much porn, or having access to this sort of thing at too young an age, but this sort of interaction where kids would say this lewd shit to each other, and even about their parents and stuff, that's quite normal. Yeah, you see quite a lot of that. Performances are just not. I'm not buying it from either of them, and they're sort of reliant on a script that's not. It's dealing with situations that are familiar and not uncommon. It doesn't do it especially well, and it's surprising given that on ITV you would see this at all. I thought they would play a little bit safer with some of the language, subjects like the dick pics and things. That's a genuine scandal if that was going on at school, and they're playing it for laughs. And I'm surprised to see this on ITV. I was expecting more of somebody like Channel 4, but I'm wondering if they've actually toned it down a little bit, and that's why it doesn't quite work. Like that, he would be much more explicit about like the sexual acts that he would be doing with the other kid's mother, I would have thought, and it would be more lifted straight out of the porn. Like, I saw this, I'm doing that to your mum, that sort of thing. It's like a joke between them. So that might be why his performance is not quite right, is that the joke's between them and not between him and the audience. Like I was saying earlier about boys with that sort of code between them that is very difficult to break if you're not part of that circle, and you wouldn't want to. Now the guy on the left here, like the cheeky chappy sort of guy, I've seen a million kids exactly like that. A million. Sometimes they're good fun and like really liven up a class. Performances or the writing maybe is just not right. And there's something a little bit off about it, because what he's saying here is actually kind of true. So it's almost like the writer is friends with a school teacher, and a school teacher says something like, you can always tell a chav kid because they've got double-barreled first names. The tough kid will have a double-barreled surname. So some teacher said something like that. They've overheard it and thought, I'm using that in my script, rather than sort of experienced children having this exchange, because it's just not quite right. There's no way he's going along with this. None at all. I don't know why they're showing this. Just because he's like a bright kid, it doesn't mean he's going to be a pushover. He's just going to be like, go away. Again, like, oh, he's the cheeky chappy, but it's hard to write a character like that, I would have thought, without sort of having one sort of in your day-to-day circle while you're doing it. If you were a teacher and you were writing this in your spare time, like lunch break and whatever, then you might be writing down the things that the kids have come out with to try and get that to feel quite real. But this kid, either the performance or the writing is off. He's not coming across as a cheeky chappy, because the cheeky chappy in a school, like I said earlier, sometimes they're top entertainment, they're good fun. Whatever that is, it's shit. Like some inspirational story, but I don't see how it ties in with either of them. Why would he have that on his wall unless it's him that was the murderer making a killing in business? But he was making a killing in business. Why is he now, I assume, headmaster? But more PTSD. Yes, I was the English teacher for a long time. I never did teach Pride and Prejudice at school. I don't think I ever did. I read it for university, but I don't think I taught it at school. Right, what they're doing now, maybe not with this text, but it's quite common. because what you've got is a couple of thickos that can't access the text. So they will fixate on a fact or a part of the text to try and derail the lesson so that they don't have to acknowledge or deal with the fact that they can't access the text. You get this a lot with bottom sets in English, and particularly something like Romeo and Juliet, for example, the fact that Romeo is 15 or something and Juliet's, I think, 12 going on 13 at the start of the book. She might be 14, and it's based on a story in which she was 12. I forget the precise details of it, but their kids will fixate on like, oh, he's a pedo and that sort of stuff, to basically try and not have to learn it. But yeah, the pained expression on this gentleman's face, you know, the school will tell you, oh yeah, we're doing The Great Gatsby this year, and you think, oh, what top set of year 11 have I got then? And they go, oh no, bottom set year 9, and you know, they're not going to access that text. They're just going to rebel, and I'm going to have like 6 weeks or 8 weeks to teach them a text that they can't read. So yeah, when that happens, you go, thank you very much to the teacher that decided that. So what she said there is that in front of the teacher, she said that she's received nudes from either one or both of these kids, sort of the curly head and the other one, not the cheeky chappy at the foreground here, who's wasted in this scene because he's not offering anything. But she's basically said that they've sent dick pics or something like that, and that would be immediate safeguarding issue. See, all the way through this, the guy on the end has contributed nothing. You need people in this class to make it look like a class, but when you start to think about the fact that they're sitting there in silence and they're not offering anything, nobody at this point has gone, why don't you shut up, which happens quite a lot. Like the brainier kids would be like, actually I just want to get on with this, will you shut up? And then they would all kick off. So it wouldn't help, but they might do it. But nobody else has contributed, which sort of betrays that, again, that screenwriter's fingerprints. This is not playing out like a real interaction. And when we talk about the number of people in this classroom, this is a Liverpudlian school, and it's sort of being played as like a state school. This class is way too small. There is nowhere near enough children in it. There'd be a minimum of 28 to 30, I would have thought. Yeah, just imagine you're a dinner lady and you call a student a wet fart. Don't get me wrong, because people that do these jobs, they're really, really valuable and really underappreciated by a lot of teachers. I never, like, even people that were coming around and cleaning and stuff like that, I was always incredibly respectful to, because it's still a vital part of that school. Like, having a clean and tidy room sets a tone in a classroom, and I really hated when I had to sort of leg it across the school and get into a classroom and find it in a tip. I'd be really angry. So people that looked after the environment, people that feed the kids, like if they're hungry, they're going to be grumpy. So it's all part of just being, like the word some schools will use would be like holistic, like looking out for the whole school, the whole of the child. This lady's getting fired. Despite all the respect that I offer, you have to understand that you're in a minimum wage job, which means you're replaced tomorrow if you're fired. You can't talk like that to a student as a teacher. Absolutely not as another member of staff. Yeah, just people overhearing the language would complain. Overhearing the insults, your own staff members, again, we've got this, there's nobody else there because they can't afford other people in the background, apparently. So there's nobody else working there. But the other people, the other members of staff that heard that would complain. If I was a teacher in that room and I heard her speak to a student like that, I would complain. And I would be really, really unhappy if I heard that there was no further action, because that boy is humiliated. That is absolute bullshit. I really hate this character. Why is he not going to the door? Why is he letting him in? Is it 2024? It doesn't feel like 2024 in this show. There's nothing convincing about any of this, but I'm astonished that ITV have put this out. What am I watching? This is just terrible. Why the fuck is he entertaining any of this? Just get rid of him. I'm not buying that these two are ever going to become friends. And the fact that he's behaved in such a way and that his mum has humiliated him in the school, I'm not buying any of this. This kid would come home, he'd be sullen as you like, really miserable. His grandparents, because his mum's died, so he's staying with his grandparents, he'd be like, what's wrong, son? He'd be like, nothing. He wouldn't talk about it because he'd been humiliated in school. And this prick on the left is just tormenting him. So contrived. Like, I'm not even going to show this clip because it's like the young lad's bearing his ass now as the grandmother's come in. But where did that come from? Because he had two hands on the laptop. They're fighting for the laptop. And how in that time has he managed to get a free hand to take his trousers down? I'm just hating this. This is really pissing me off now. Crikey, they're going to do the whole week in one episode because it's only Tuesday and I'm sick of this. Who the hell are these guys? Just like a random adult wandering into the school and looking at the guy on the left. It's like, what's going on with that? It's like, whatever you've been taught to do as part of your performance, why are they not cutting that and going, look, dude, this is... So he's come in to make take the piss out of a kid, to say he's got a small penis, but who the fuck is he? He's not in uniform, so he's a grown-up, right? Like if you compare that to the way that Greg Davies in Between Us would crush the little boys around him with just like a word or a look. That's how you do it. Like this making... Who the hell are these people? Why are they on the school grounds? You just wander into a school to take the piss out of a school kid. So again, we've got an adult coming into the school exchanging some sort of package which these boys are insinuating is her underwear. I don't know who he is, but holy fuck, there's some safeguarding issues going on. Crikey, if you were to hear their conversation and see that, that's another another mountain of paperwork. This is so unconvincing because boys talk about wanking all the time. And I don't necessarily think we can grow out of it that much. But these guys would be like, oh, he has to wank 7 times a day just to get be able to function. They'd be like, Christ, I managed 10 watching EastEnders. It would be that sort of conversation. It's like 7. What fucking lightweight is that? That's like Exeter City. I'm more Aston Villa. That sort of conversation. Absolute bollocks. This scene is written by somebody that's heard that sort of story and then wrote a scene around it, but hasn't lived that scene and therefore can't write it in a convincing way. Kids in the background, it's like, look how few kids there are in the background. Have they come into school like an hour early or stayed an hour late? Where the hell are all the kids? This would be heaving. If I can't bury my head in your mum's ass, I'm going to bury my head in her tits. Again, what you should do for some research if you're going to do this is get yourself on Pornhub for a couple of hours and put MILF and shit like that in, and then what you'll get is a whole bunch of stuff that it would be what these guys are watching. And what they would be talking about was they'd be describing what they'd seen in that movie, and then you would be able to go, right, this is what they would say based on that. I don't think that this guy, and I guess it's not much of an insult to say that he hasn't watched enough porn, but he also hasn't been around enough kids, so that this scene is completely unconvincing. Again, look, his mannerisms, his performance, he's so much better for that lead role than the other guy. And they've wasted him. Surrey crew. Right, he's had to come up from Surrey because that's like a posh part of England, don't you know? We play a rugger. Have cucumber sandwiches at lunchtime. Just... Sorry. To be fair, I actually did a day where I visited a school in Surrey, and it was in Guildford, and it was like these were all the sons of MPs and stuff like that. So it was a very posh school, and or rather, the kids were at school was the same, and behaviour was much the same. But they had this thing where they were doing their 2-minute when you do your GCSE, you have to do like a 2-minute talk on a subject, and you can choose the subject. So they were doing that, and I was observing that for them as part of my day there. And it was quite interesting to see, like, I'm the son of David Cameron's auntie, don't you know? And my talk today is on drill and grime music. And he'd be like, okay, sure, carry on. And they all have this desire to understand the poor people. We must associate and understand with our underclasses. Watching all these extremely wealthy, extremely privileged people trying to talk about stuff that was so beyond their comfort zone. You did it pretty well. I'd tip my hat if you're one of them and you watch this video. You did pretty well. Maybe I'm imposing some of that on this guy, and he's not the guy that I think he is, because we haven't really seen sort of a huge sort of statement scene that would go, this guy's like really intellectual, or this guy's this or that. He might be from Surrey, and he might well be a dullard. He said, what are your pronouns? She said, not interested. And he found that funny. Disgusting little perverted rat. That's what she said his pronouns were. He's given it the cheeky chappy, but he's the wrong guy for the role. The other guy should be in that role. But he never ever says anything. He's just there. And the fact that he's come up with, I'm part of the DLPR community, he wouldn't be able to think on his feet quick enough to go, disgusting little perverted rat, that's DLPR. He wouldn't be able to do that, not at the speed of this stuff. It's just shit. Where's the joke? What's funny about any of this? It's painful. I'm really sick of this now. I really don't want to watch anymore. It's not funny. The characters are all assholes and idiots, but I'm getting far too much PTSD from my days as a teacher. I don't want to watch any more of this. So it turns out that they've identified the guy because his cock's weird, because he's a racist. So it looks like her boyfriend's penis has appeared somehow in the dick pics that are being shared around. She's not happy. Okay, we've reached the ad break. We're also very close to the limit of how much more of this I can tolerate. This is really poor in terms of acting, performance is not funny. There are elements of it that definitely ring true. There are other elements that don't. I'm not sure how much more I can tolerate. I have, on occasion, ended up with whiteboards that look a bit like this, but in all honesty, it's like a rookie mistake. If you've got more than about 3 or 4 things on there, they're not going to notice what any of them are. He also spelled meter wrong. You have to do it in different ways. You can go, I'll have a show of hands, or I'll ask for like 3 volunteers to read theirs and stuff like that. If you just go hands up, then nobody ever does. Like, you have the same people that will volunteer and then nobody else. And you need to hear from everybody in the room. You might well go, what's the new boy got about him? So I might ask him if he wants to. But you do go, do you want to? If you're picking somebody, you can't really make them. But one of the things you can do, which is kind of fun, and the kids kind of buy into it a little bit, is the randomizer. And I had a class where the randomizer picked the same kid 3 times, and it was a pretty good lesson, to be fair, because the kid sort of tolerated the fact that it constantly landed on him. It came like a running theme for that class, and just like everybody was funny about it. And in the next lesson, I'd be like, if I don't get a volunteer, I'm going to use the randomizer, and they were like pointing at the guy going, "Oh!" It was quite funny. It was good stuff. One of the better groups. And again, you just don't force him. Go, are you sure? You say, give it a go. Be brave. Nobody in here's going to mock you. I mean, some of these pricks might because it's TV. But if they start, you go, you do know that if you start, you're next. So now this guy, again, the wrong guy, is going to be like reading some poem. He's going to make it up. It's going to be everybody's laughing, and it's hilariously brilliant. Yeah. Brexit's still the boogeyman in schools because, like I say, schools are so incredibly left-wing, and the kids will pick up on the fact that it's like a trigger word for their teachers, and they'll use it. That was a load of crap, and the teacher's been like, where's the imagery? Where was this and that? And you don't do that, because he did use things that are poetic, like the rhyming. So you would pick the things that he did. Oh, you rhymed Brexit with universal credit. You know, you're talking about social issues and things like that. You would pick something out and use it as an example. So the kid actually, if you go, where was this? Where was that? He probably doesn't know what any of that is. So you reinforce those that do by going, yeah, you used a rhetorical question. Who's that? What's there? While he's talking his drivel, you're trying to think, how do I use that to introduce a theme? You don't just go, where was? You might, if you're struggling like crazy, you could put the question to the class, be like, so guys, what did you notice about that? And somebody be like, oh, it was stupid, or it was rubbish, or I thought it was great, sir, or some sort of boneheaded answer like that. But it gives you thinking time to come up with, well, what did he say? What was in there that could be a push, sort of poetic? I mean, I don't think this guy's being portrayed as a good teacher, so perhaps that's part of it. But these two have not been in a scene together where they have interacted for this scene to happen. She'd be hanging out with him, and the other one would come in and go, what the fuck are you talking to the weirdo for? And she'd be like, I'm not talking to the weirdo, he was being weird around me, and off they'd go. I'm not buying this scene at all. So she said, who's Nelson Mandela? Which, yeah, don't get me wrong, because you could have done a full week on South African politics and talked about him every single day, and it'd still go, who's Nelson Mandela? And I like this bit, actually. This is the first bit that I'll be like, yeah, that's about right, which is that they learn far better from Google and their phones than they do from their teachers, because they're willing. They're willing. I'm not interested in what the teachers do or say. There needed to be a scene there that has not been shown for this to work. If they're going to try to convince me that the posh kid and the ginger girl are going to get together, then he can't be laughing as she goes off with the other guy. It just... Right, I'm done with this. It's really poor. I give it, as a TV show, like a 3 out of 10. As a sort of generalised, some of this goes on in schools, like a 5 out of 10, but as an entertaining or realistic portrayal as a score, it'd be much lower than that. Maybe your experiences of your schools, or if as a pupil or as a teacher, is different to mine, but I taught in long term, as in like more than a couple of terms, in 3 different schools, and did hundreds of days across a dozen other schools as a supply teacher. Because of the subjects as well, like the kids sharing dick pics and things like that, that's just so genuinely awful. I don't doubt that it goes on, but it's just so genuinely awful and so serious an issue that to play it for laughs is really misguided and misjudged. It's 1/10 of what In Between Us was. It's just not worth watching. There's just better shows about. In fact, the real to life ones, things like Educating Manchester, would probably be more entertaining than this show, and probably funnier too.